Story 1. Funny story. My wife is very fun and bubbly and has her hair dyed. She gets so many compliments about her makeup or her Dr. Martens, but I never get any. Anyway, about 2 weeks ago, I'm standing next to my car to pick up my kids from elementary school. This girl, maybe 10 or 11, walks by me and says, "You look like a model," with a dead serious face and just keeps walking. I just started laughing. Story 2. One time, I straightened my curly hair, and this guy in my class said, "I love your curls. They remind me of noodles. Your straight hair makes me want to pour hot water on it to see how your curls turn out." I didn't know whether to laugh, be flattered, or question his logic. Story 3. An old roommate complimented my clothes for never matching and always having the confidence to pull it off. Turns out I am not overly confident and full of swagger, but, in fact, colorblind. Story 4. During an ultrasound for cysts, I was told I had a beautiful uterus. Also, a friend in high school complimented my long, skinny toes. I hate my feet and had no idea my toes were skinny. Story 5. I was in a vocal class with other students, and my teacher said he liked my pronunciation. I speak multiple languages, which means I understand tongue placements, giving me a stronger mastery of pronunciation than others. He appreciates my articulation. I didn't find it weird. Everyone else did. Story 6. You look like a human trash can where everyone can dispose of their waste. It was a compliment from a beautiful woman, no less, who meant that I'm a good listener. She even gave me her number. I didn't call. Story 7. You are the type of mom I aspire to be from a coworker when talking about the crafty project I was doing with my kid. I honestly floated on that one for quite a while. Story 8. A dentist once stopped mid-cleaning to ask if he could have my right molar if it was ever pulled. It's the biggest tooth I've ever seen. Sad to say, years later he had to grind it down for a root canal. His almost trophy turned to dust. Story 9. A coworker once told me, "You look like the kind of person who remembers to floss." I guess it was a compliment about my responsibility. Still weird, though. Story 10. Okay, I'm going to answer this the same way I answered a similar question yesterday on this same subreddit. When I was about 25 or 26 years old, I was walking through a parking lot at, I believe, a Walmart. There was a lady in her late 60s, maybe even 70s, trying to load an entertainment center that was not yet assembled, so it was still in the box. It wasn't huge, but it was heavy. They did not offer her any help to load it into her truck. So I stopped and helped her, and after I picked it up myself and put it in, she looked me right dead into my eyes, into my soul even, and said the following sentence: "If I was 40 years younger, you would be naked already." I busted out laughing, and I said I appreciate that. Yesterday people were asking me, "So did you get down with the sickness with that old lady?" And just to be hilarious, I said, "No, and that is one of my greatest regrets to this day." Hopefully, this made all of you laugh. I swear this is 100% true, and it is the most hilarious situation I've ever been in, probably. I love it when people are just bluntly honest with you like that, and they say things that are funny even though they don't think it's funny. To me, those are ideal situations. Happy New Year, and I hope all of you beautiful, twisted people have a good day. Story 11. I was on a date with a German guy in Ireland, talking about our cultural differences. I am French, but usually people think I am Italian, Spanish, or Moroccan. And the guy said, "Oh no, I could have picked you out of a crowd and said you were from Paris." I was confused because it's not usually a compliment, but he assured me it was. Story 12. Years ago, I worked at a preschool with 3-year-olds. One little boy was having a rough time and was very clingy. I honestly called him my pocket friend because he was never further than my pocket. His mom came to pick him up one day, and we were sitting together on the carpet with him pressed completely into my side. He said he didn't want to go because I was so squishy and safe. The nicest way I've ever been called fat. Story 13. You take criticism really well. On the one hand, it's flattering that someone acknowledged I can comfortably take constructive criticism, but it also hurt that they had enough experience watching me receive constructive criticism to reach that conclusion. Story 14. It was absolutely not meant as a compliment, but rather a confession. However, I took it as a compliment. I dated a girl for a little over a year. I was madly in love with her. She broke up with me for a guy who was a complete jerk. She eventually realized he was a jerk, left him, and married his best friend. We ran into one another one time while she was still with the jerk, and she told me, "I don't think I ever really loved you. I just loved the way you made me feel." As far as I was concerned, that meant I'd done everything I could have possibly done. Story 15. A friend of my mom's saw me delicately putting some electronic device back together and told me that with steady hands like that, I would make a good sniper. Thanks? Story 16. Not me, but my buddy. He was walking and passed an older homeless lady. She told him, "Oh boy, you made my butthole moist." We still say it to this day. Story 17. This was weird, but kind of sweet. About 10 years ago, my wife and I, we were probably around 60 and 59 at the time, were going to have dinner at our favorite restaurant. As we were approaching the door, a young man, maybe in his late 20s, was behind us going in as well. All of a sudden he said, "Wow, you two are really a sharp-looking couple." I was thinking, what? I thought he was being a wise guy, but when I turned to look at him, he was totally non-threatening and very nicely put together. He then said something like, "You're both tall and good-looking, and look at your outfits. You look awesome." Needless to say, we weren't prepared for this. So we said a few things back and forth, and he joined a table with several other people. And when we were leaving, I glanced over and he was happily waving at us. I was tempted to go over and ask him if he needed a new dad. Story 18. I was bartending at a busy small-town college bar. I just so happened to hear one drunk girl tell another drunk girl she thought I was hot, which was nice to hear, but then drunk girl number 2 proclaimed, "Yeah, I'd eat French fries out of his butt." I was flattered but mildly disgusted. Story 19. At a Panera, I, a 24-year-old man, was wearing a tank top. When I came to the counter, the cashier, a young woman, immediately said, "Your chest hair looks like a bird." It's been a few years, and I'm still not sure what the right response to that was. Story 20. You cannot be from Long Island. I dislike people from Long Island. They are snobby and rude. You are nice, and I enjoy talking to you. So you are not from Long Island. Story 21. I was once told I have a pretty uterus during an ultrasound, and another time that I had very nicely laid out organs which were perfect to scan. I was very confused both times. Story 22. One of the funniest and weirdest compliments I have ever received was from an old lady. "You would have been perfect if the Nazis had won. You possess every physical trait Hitler desired. You are an Übermensch." I have never been more confused about how to respond to a comment, yet I have never laughed so hard because of one either. Story 23. One time I was playing a board game with friends and suddenly I needed counter tokens. So I fished out 8 coins from my pocket. It worked great until I had to start counting more than 8. So those coins became binary bits, and that's how I counted everything I realistically needed to keep track of in the game. My friend told me, "I love your brain and how it works." Another time, my wife and I got locked out, and I picked the lock with my backpack lock picks to avoid the fee of a locksmith. My wife told me it was the hottest thing she's ever seen. Story 24. You have a nice round face. The sole compliment my ex could come up with in 11 years. Also, my friend admiring my handwriting. You have nice aunt's handwriting. Story 25. In the middle of a random argument with a coworker I didn't really like, she said I have beautiful eyes out of the blue, before carrying on with her tirade about missed deadlines. Story 26. When I had to get a spinal tap, where they stick a needle in your spine and take some of your cerebrospinal fluid, the doctor complimented my cerebrospinal fluid and said he'd never seen someone's as clean nor had someone's come out as quickly. I didn't know what to think. Story 27. Surprisingly, your vomit smells good. I donated blood and had some sort of reaction or got sick because of it, but right after they took the needle out, I puked in a bucket and the nurse told me this. Story 28. I was sitting next to my cousin once and she told me, "You have really soft arms," but with disgust. That same cousin told me, "We can see details in your eyes," again with that face of disgust. I didn't know whether to be flattered or insulted. Story 29. Last week at a bar, a group of drunk people told me I look like Glenn Powell. I don't personally see much resemblance other than we both look like generic, non-ugly white men. But I still took it as quite the compliment. Story 30. At Thanksgiving, I think a relative told me I'm looking more like a young adult and less like a teenager. I wasn't feeling good and didn't put very much effort into my appearance. So my first thought was, you mean depressed and tired of everything and everyone? Sounds about right. Story 31. A nurse had trouble finding my vein for a blood draw and stated in a tiny, cute voice that I had little tiny, demure lady veins. I think about it each time I get my blood drawn. Story 32. Around this time 5 years ago, I got my downstairs area checked because I thought I had a problem. After the woman doctor assessed them, she said there were no issues and that they hang very balanced and nicely. Story 33. Years ago, I caught a man in line behind me at the grocery store smelling me. He told me that I looked like I smelled good, but he needed to know for himself what I smelled like. Story 34. These two girls I used to be friends with always talked about how scrawny I was and how they could feel my bones on my shoulders and stuff. It was weird. Story 35. A woman, a complete stranger, was coming out of the convenience store as I was entering. She held the door for me, and as I passed, she said I smelled good enough to eat. Story 36. My doctor said, "You have nice veins at least. Easy to find." This was after this poor man sat with his head in his hands when I entered the room because my medical file weighs a ton, and he's tired of seeing me. Story 37. A girl in high school once stopped me as I was coming out of class and just said, "You have, like, spider webs in your eyes." I had no clue how to react, so I just said thanks, but then I rode that high for a long time as I didn't get compliments often. Story 38. When I was about 10, my slightly older next-door neighbor boy told me that I was pretty tall for a fat girl. For context, I wasn't fat, but definitely more solid than a lot of 10-year-old girls. We are still friends and still laugh about his compliment. Story 39. Being called very animated was just a description of my personality and how I act, but I've never really heard anyone else be referred to like that, and I haven't been called that since. It was a good one. I liked it a lot. Story 40. A gynecologist told me I had an impressive pain threshold. The dentist told me I had lovely teeth, but he was glad he didn't have many patients like me, as he wouldn't make any money. Story 41. I've dyed my hair every color, both natural and unnatural, but most often pastel pink. People I work with will tell me, "Pink is my favorite, the one that looks best on you, and pink should be your natural hair color." Thanks, I think. Multiple people, including strangers, have also told me when I had long pastel pink hair, "I want to eat your hair," usually saying it looks like cotton candy. Sometimes they didn't include that, which was extra weird. Story 42. You have nice eyes. You should move to a country where you have to cover your face so your eyes stand out. He insisted it was a compliment and not an insult. Story 43. I had another guy stop me and compliment my eyebrows. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "I grew them myself." I think I made the interaction even more awkward than it needed to be. Story 44. Older men have said I would look so hot or cute pregnant. Like, sure, it's a compliment, but you've also probably spent time thinking about that, and it's so creepy. Story 45. I had a random lady come over and tell me I have perfect ears. I wasn't wearing earrings or anything. She just liked the shape of my ears. I've been secretly ear proud ever since. Story 46. You have nice teeth. My colleague somehow noticed that I had well-aligned teeth, which made my smile nice. But his teeth are better, and he delivered the sentence so strangely that it stuck with me. Story 47. Your nostrils are perfectly shaped. They take some attention away from your nose bump. I know it was meant as a compliment, and my nose isn't that crooked, so it's fine, but that was weird. Story 48. My chief warrant officer told me I would make a great father. No idea what prompted that, and I have no desire for children, but it's something I think about occasionally. Story 49. I was traveling for work once and decided to grab a drink at the hotel bar before bed. A woman at the bar, a complete stranger to me, came up out of nowhere and told me I looked like a hot Harry Potter. And mind you, this was way back when only one movie had been released, and I was almost 30 at the time. I honestly didn't know what to think. Story 50. It was weird but nice at the same time, I think. At a bar one night, a girl walked up to me and told me my face looks like a galaxy because of my beauty marks. I just said thank you, you're really pretty too, and slowly made my exit. Story 51. Middle school classmate didn't understand why I didn't smile when he told me that I resembled Janis Joplin. High school guy had a crush on me, asked me to be in his band, then tried to assign me a slew of music classes. I left the area. Story 52. I was told I looked like an 18th century New Orleans vampire. I was wearing business casual and I have blonde hair, but I must have been bringing the dark mystery vibes that day. Story 53. I usually have just the mustache as far as facial hair goes. There's a coffee shop I would walk to from my office all the time. The one time I went clean shaven, the barista told me, "You have a nice top lip." Story 54. I've been compared to a lot of good-looking actors like Matthew McConaughey, Bradley Cooper, Josh Hartnett, and Bret Michaels. One time a girl at the gym said I looked like Atlas, which is cool but definitely unusual. Story 55. Growing up, I was always complimented as being a good-looking Italian. I'm a reverse Chief J Strongbow and Iron Eyes Cody, the crying Indian. I'm Mohawk. Story 56. Someone remarked that I'm an all-over-the-details guy. This made me very happy because my job is, in many ways, to be a details guy, and I've always thought I was kind of made for my profession. To hear someone comment on it outside the professional environment was cool.